Hey guys, this is Dabson Ishmael and I'm back again with another tutorial. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how I designed should I say a simple website. It's about 2-page website. It's going to be more, but I had to just do the layout for 2 pages. So I'm going to walk you through how I went about that thing. So as you can see, this is the final website, and this is actually the website I had to look at to be able to begin everything. So let me just walk you through. So starting with the actual website is netsuite.com/blog. That was the site that contained similar layouts that I was tasked to design. So I had to go through the site and then get everything well, and then after that I had to go ahead to get the resources from the site. So I went ahead to grab the graphics. So all these graphics, everything that I was using this project was just for, should I say, demonstration purpose. Everything is going to be taken out and then replaced with actual photos and the rest of for the actual project. So I went ahead to grab the graphics. I used some of the browser tools to be able to do this. So I had to use the inspect option to be able to download that particular image, because I want a situation whereby if I'm working on it, it's easier to get an actual size and everything. So that's what I'm actually doing here. I downloaded the image, selected my location where I want to save it on my system, and then I went ahead to save it, as well as I went ahead to download the other that is images. So that is basically what I'm doing at this point. Because this is a lengthy video, I'm not going to be able to talk through the entire video, so I'll be having some sound play at some point. And since I don't know if I was so fast, but if I'm so fast in going about the process, kindly pardon me, because I was also I'm timed with this particular project. It took like about 1 hour, close to 30 minutes to figure out everything. So I was also very, very much particular with that. So as you can see, I'm currently downloading the resources. That's the images that I can use at various points for the project. So after downloading the resources, that is the pictures and the rest, I had to continue through to get even the colors and so on. So I switched to WYSIWYG web builder at this point, and then I had to check to see if I'm running the current version of the application. Then I went ahead to configure my page. So I set up the page width, which was 1600. It was a bit bigger than my screen because I'm using my laptop. I had to zoom out a little bit by using the scroll wheel and then holding on control to zoom out a little bit. So I zoomed out to about 90, and then I went ahead to organize the files that are downloaded. That's the picture. So after doing that, I went ahead to inspect the page to be able to get the size of various parts. So I went ahead to use the inspect object to be able to inspect the properties of the page and get the respective sizes. And then I came into WYSIWYG web builder, grab my layer 2, and then specify the actual size I was going to use. So this is 1600 by 70 pixels. Then position it at the top, come back, get the sizes for the different parts, be able to even get a size for the content which has been positioned exactly in the middle of the page. So I went ahead to do that. Let me just so still using the inspect to be able to grab those respective sizes. So for this particular one is 1188 by 70 pixels. So I went back to WYSIWYG web builder, then I grabbed a new layer, specified the size to be 1188 by 70, I think it was 70 pixels. Yeah, so I specified that, and then I went ahead to reposition that in there to be able to help me bring a line or a ruler to be able to serve as a guide for my project. So I went ahead to bring in should I say a line or ruler from that point to help me with alignment of content exactly in the middle of the page. So after doing that, I went ahead to grab the logo. So let me make sure the color is set to white. So I did that, centered alignment, and then I came back to the application, and then I went ahead to download the logo. I'm sure at this point I hadn't downloaded the logo yet, so yeah, so I went ahead to get the logo, grab the logo from this point, and then after doing that, I went to the location, and then I brought it to WYSIWYG web builder. So let me just so I think that's what I did at this point. I copied it to the respective location, and then I brought it to WYSIWYG web builder and then positioned it where it has to be. So after doing that, then I was checking on the font, that is the font awesome icon they have in there, or the icon they have in there for the menu, to see how I can go about that. So at this point, I tried a couple of ways to go about this. First of all, I was trying to see if I can use the font awesome icon to do that, but while in the process of trying that, I decided, why not check to see if there's any sort of menu icon in there which can actually do that. So at this point, if you notice, I typed menu in the search bar, so I'm going to type menu there, and then it gave me all the menu options. So I tried the overlay menu, thinking it was going to give me something close to the way the website menu behaves. So I went through it, previewed it, tried it. I noticed this wasn't really going to work out for me, so I had to get rid of it. And then I had to I think I was even checking the settings to see if there's a way to configure it to look the way I wanted. I still went through the other menu options, thinking I could get something. I tried the panel menu. I even went ahead to even configure the panel menu for some time. So I changed the icon in it, that is the text, to an icon. I changed the alignment, I changed the position, and then I went ahead to preview it just to see if it was going to work out. But unfortunately, it still wasn't going to serve my purpose. So at this point, I was trying to get appropriate icon to fit in there. I wasn't getting something similar to what they had, so I needed to improvise a little bit. I searched through to see if I could find something that looked a bit close. The alignment did, but looks like with the alignment I have 4 bars instead of 3 bars, so that wasn't really something I'd wanted to use for this project. So I went ahead to use the bars icon. So I selected the bars icon from the font awesome icon category, and then I went ahead to specify, like, configure it to match exactly the size that was on the site. So I took some time to do that. I got something a bit close, but the functionality of the panel menu wasn't closer to what the site was given, so then I had to get rid of it. So at this point, I'm actually going through to configure the panel menu. Mostly, sometimes some of these things you need to try a couple of steps or a couple of processes to be able to get exactly what you want. So once that didn't really suit what I wanted, I had to try something else. So at this point, you could see that I'm still trying. I'm still configuring the that's the panel menu, just to see if it was going to give me something that I wanted. So here I was doing the alignment, that is the offset for the image or the icon in there, just to have it sit in exactly the middle. So I went ahead to reduce the size of it, and then it moved a bit, so I had to come back to change the offset to get it exactly in the middle. So that's what I'm doing at this point. So I tried a couple of number options to see which one was going to get it exactly in the middle, and after getting that, I went ahead to I think that was, so I changed the color at this point. So I went to styles, went to the button section, and then changed the color for the icon as well as the background, to be able to test it out to see if it's really going to work out for me. So that's what I'm doing at this point. I'm trying to figure out the button color, background, and then the color for the button itself. So I managed to change the colors to suit what I wanted. But unfortunately, like I said, or as you know, the panel menu is actually not going to serve my purpose in this particular video. So that's even this particular project. So, but of course, like I said, you have to try a couple of things. You have to try a couple of processes. You have to try a couple of tools just to see which one exactly is going to match or meet what you want. And then once you've been able to figure out what you want, you go ahead to proceed from there. Sometimes it takes some time to be able to see or figure out which tool to use. Sometimes even with the functionalities, it takes some time to be able to figure out all that. But you need to, so this whole web building process takes some time. It doesn't start like you just have everything going smooth from start to finish. At some point, you even end up spending so much time trying to make something work before than even spending time creating the actual thing. So these are some of the things that I mostly encounter when I'm working on any project at all. It doesn't like go smooth from start to finish. I need to try a couple of things. I need to look at a couple of processes before I proceed with that. So at this point, I had finished designing the panel menu to suit what I wanted. But upon trying it, I noticed it was nowhere close to what I had on the actual or original website. I had to think of creating my own. Yeah, I was going to create my own with the front of some icon, as well as using the that of Google Materials icon to do that. But I was going to use events to control how my menu and navigation was going to show. So I was actually looking at how this is working here, and then notice once you click this slides from the top down. You have the menu showing there. You click on the cancel close, it goes away. So this is what I was going to do. So I brought the layer 2. I got a CSS menu first because that's what I'm going to use for that. I went ahead to configure it to suit the height, the text, as well as the colors and everything. So that's what I'm actually doing at this point. I changed the size of it, and then the background color, I changed that as well to match exactly what I had on the original website. So as you can see, that is what I'm doing at this point. So I had to come back to the actual site, use the inspect option, and then check to see the color that was being used. So at this point, I'm trying to find the color. So I think I figured out the color, and then the font type. Okay, so I was looking for the font type. I was trying to see if I could install exactly the font type that they used, but it looks like it wasn't available on Google Font. So then I resorted to use Open Sans for the project. So you notice that I still didn't find anything sans like as close to what they had. So this time I decided I was going to use Open Sans, since Open Sans is like a universal font you can use for almost any kind of website. So I decided to use that, and then I checked the size as well as the color, the background color. So I was trying to check that from this point, and then after getting the appropriate color as well as the size, then I decided I was going to continue to use those colors to match exactly what I had at the back at my part, or what I had on the navigation that I was trying to create. So having that affected on both the CSS menu as well as a new layer that I'm bringing in here. So I'm going to set this. I was checking the size of the layer at this point, so I had to go to inspect and then use the selector to check for the size, that's the width, as well as the height of that particular div or object or layer in there. So after getting that, then I came back to WYSIWYG Web Builder. I tried configuring it close to that, but it looked like mine was a bit smaller. So then I had to expand it a little bit at some point so I could use that. So I think I've actually expanded it to 369, that's the width at the size part. And then Also, I needed to so I changed the color at this point after repositioning it. Looking at that small icon at the top, I wanted to do something, but I noticed it wasn't really necessary to do that, so I just went back to reposition it back to the bottom, and then I tried resizing my CSS menu first, and then I went ahead to position it. Now before I position it, I tried to get the menu items in the navigation object, so I typed everything in Notepad, which was going to make it easier for me to just copy and paste in WYSIWYG Web Builder using the CSS tool. So that is what I am doing at this point. And after I finished typing everything, I went back to WYSIWYG Web Builder, I opened my CSS menu, and then I typed my navigation items in it. So I have the industries, global, region, product, topic, category, the news, NetSuite, product, and many more, podcast, NetSuite, podcast, and the rest. So I changed this, I removed everything, and then I clicked on add, copy and paste. So that was what I was doing at this point, copying, and then I think I was even cutting, so it doesn't really confuse me at any point. So I kept adding the menu items until I finished everything. So kept copying and pasting. So these are some of the processes sometimes you have to do or use to be able to help speed up your work a little bit. Sometimes you need to figure out a way you can go about everything so that it doesn't really take so much time, like you have to go and copy everything or you have to go and type everything from start to finish. You need to find tools that is going to make it a bit easier to go about the entire process. So that is what I was doing at this point. So I copied and pasted in there. Try to reconfigure the position of the text in it, and I even changed the font type. I don't know, I think the font type was Open Sans, but I changed the font size as well as the colors, that is the font colors of it, before I went ahead to reposition that in that layer which was in there. So I think at this point I was getting something closer, but I wasn't still satisfied because I needed to get the height a bit to match exactly what was in there. So that was what I did next, and then I moved that to the layer that I have in there. So at this point I changed the background color of the layer I had brought, so you could see that, and then I moved the CSS menu into it. So if you take a very good look at it, you notice that it doesn't really align properly. The background of the CSS menu doesn't tally, and then the size also of it doesn't also match the layer I had in there. So I needed to increase the height of the CSS menu, so I changed that to that. I think that was about 60 pixels, and it's over here. I'm just trying to reposition it, so expand it, make sure it fits in there, come back to styles. Okay, so the height is 65 pixels instead, and if you check the width was 80, which is fixed, so I had to change that from fixed to variable, and I also had to create padding from the left to the menu. So I did that by setting that to about 10. Then I changed, so I set that to like 20 instead. I changed the colors over here, so it shows me the exact colors I want for the navigation, and then I made sure my background colors were appropriate. So I did set that. I was checking over here to see if you hover over it, what's the color you get, but it was a bit difficult to get that actual color. So then what I did was I just got one of the colors that was specified in the CSS of the website, and then I came back to my project and then used that as the rollover background or hover background color. So that's what I set here. So I think over here I needed to set the same color I set for the first one, that's the main background for the layer, and then the hover was this color. I think I switched it here, but I corrected it. So if you notice, so I have changed the color now. I need to specify the width for my CSS menu because I don't like that small background, grid background over there. So this is why I changed. I noticed that I was supposed to change the width to, so yeah, I corrected the colors here, and then yeah, I changed that, and then that was perfect. And there was still a need for me to change the width. I think I did it some time after. I had to preview this to make sure everything was okay before I noticed that. So I think at this point I hadn't really noticed that yet, so I was just trying to configure the navigation objects to match appropriately the width of my my layer. So I previewed this, and then once I hovered, I noticed, okay, it looks like there's a problem somewhere, so I had to come back and fix that. So I came back to WYSIWYG Web Builder, double click on my CSS menu, and then this is where I noticed that the button size, so if you look at the top, we have fixed at the top, so I corrected that. So it looks like I was still trying to figure out what the issue was, but I finally noticed it, and then I corrected that. So this is where, yeah, so I changed the fix to variable, and that was the fix. So if you notice, if I preview this again, yeah, so that was probably done there. So after working on the navigation, I wasn't entirely done with the navigation. There was more I was supposed to do with the navigation, but I had to proceed with other parts. So I think at this point I was trying to get a appropriate color for the button. That's the icon over there. So I changed the colors. That's the boot, the hover, and then the default color. And yeah, so I changed the colors here to match exactly that. So that was matching very well. And I think so I changed this to menu. That's the ID of the menu or the icon, and I duplicated that and changed that to close. So I was looking for the close icon or the cancel icon, which was going to serve us once you have the page, should I say, you click on the icon, the close icon should show for you to be able to close it once you have your navigation object showing. And I was going to do that with event. So I was searching through my icons. I think at this point I was going through the wrong set of icons, so I had to switch from the font awesome icon to material icons. That's from Google. So I was still going through, and I noticed I wasn't going to find what I needed here, so I went ahead to leave this part and then proceeded to material icons. So yeah, I switched to material icons, and then I searched for close, and then there so this is the menu, so it means that it meant that I was going to get that for the close as well. So I searched for the close and then selected that, and I went back to the font awesome, changed that to material icons, and then selected or search for menu to change that, because this has a bit tiny bars compared to that of the font awesome icon. So I positioned the close menu close to the menu icon, and then I think I renamed the layer containing the navigation object. So at this point I think I went ahead to set events to this. So the events were just quite simple. What I wanted to do was, once you click on the menu, it shows you the layer, or it brings the layer from the top just the same way it says on the website. So the effect was on click, show with effect. I specified the target, which is the layer, that is the navigation layer. And then at this point I had to go through the effect. So I tried the effect one after the other to see which one was exactly going to match what it had on the website. So I was trying this. After setting it, I went ahead to preview it in the browser. So I went ahead to set the appropriate that is the effect for it, selected the target, and then went ahead to, I think I set this to slide. Was it slide? Yeah, I used one of the options over there, but that wasn't what I wanted. So after previewing this in the browser, I noticed that wasn't giving me what I wanted, even though it's working. So I had to go back and then change that to the appropriate effect. So I tweaked that from the slide down to, I think I made it slide up. Well, I think I used drop up. I was supposed to use the slide up instead, but it looks like I was still thinking there was some of the effects aside that which was going to help me achieve that. So the drop up wasn't what I needed to use for that, so I had to try it a couple of times and then come back to my project. So I came back to my project and then I tried, I think this time around I used the slide down instead. Let me see if the slide up instead. So let me see. So I was trying to figure out which one of them will work. But the correct effect that worked was the slide up effect, which allowed me to be able to set exactly the same effect that was on the website. So if you notice, this was like pretty close, so but still from the bottom. So I had to this time correct it, changing it to the top. Right, so I set the slide up, and then I did the same for the close. So I corrected that to also slide up, and that was just about it. So I previewed this. I think so the effect wasn't just one. I set 3 effects for all the icons. Now the first effect is supposed to show the layer containing the menu. The second effect is supposed to hide the menu icon, and then the third effect is supposed to show the close icon. So these 3 things are happening concurrently. So once you click on the menu icon, it hides itself, it shows the layer containing the menu, and then it also goes ahead to show the close icon. So once you do for the close icon, it also does the same. So it closes the menu, it closes or hides itself, and then it shows the menu icon. So that was basically the effect that I set, and after configuring the effect, I had to try it and it was working well. I think at this point, in as much as I was still trying to get the effect to work the way I wanted, I missed one of the steps and it wasn't really working that well. So even after this point, I had to come back and then correct that. So still configuring things. Yeah, so that's 0. Okay, and moved it on top exactly on this. And then I had to use the object manager to hide the close because I wanted the close to come after so you see, notice that the menu comes, the menu shows the layer but doesn't hide itself. So it means I had to correct that. Double click on that and then change the show with effect property of the menu. That was the second or the middle one, to hide with effect, and that was just about it to solve that particular issue. So I still selected fade, and then yeah, so I'm going to hide that again. Yeah, right, and then preview this. So you click on the menu, it shows the layer, it hides itself, it shows the close or the cancel icon, and yeah, that was exactly what I wanted. So at this point, I have achieved the navigation for the site. I have my logo, I have my top layer. I still have a lot more to do. So I need to add a search, I need to work on the body of the page, as well as need to work on the footer. So I think at this point I proceeded to work on the footer section. So I was trying to get the appropriate color of some points of the site. So yeah, I was picking the background color. That was the extreme, like to the right, or the main background color of the site. So I had to change my page background to that. So at this point I was changing the page background to that. And after doing that, I proceeded to work on the footer. So this is where I was getting the footer color and then the items within the footer. So the footer was basically also a layer. I changed the size to 1600, and then the height was something else. So I was going to change the height to an appropriate height size. At this point, I was just bringing that to create something so I know I have a footer, but later I would complete it. So I tried picking the color for the footer to get an appropriate color, so I could replace the color of it in WYSIWYG Builder. So yeah, I have the color set now, and the next thing is for me to bring the items, some of the items, not everything. So aside that, also I had to bring, so if you notice there's an image on top of the layer before the layer itself. So I had to bring a layer for that. Yes, I checked the size of that in the browser to know what size it would be if I'm bringing a new layer, so that I can actually match that exactly. So I went to my toolbox, bring in a layer, and then specify the size of the layer, and then set that image as the background. So I went ahead to resize the layer to, that was 1600 by, I think that was like about 16 pixels, that's the height, and then set the background to be image, and then selected that image which I had in there to serve as the background image, and then I click on OK, and that was looking just fine over there. So I got rid of the image, and then I went ahead to bring the other items that I was going to need in there. That's a footer. So before then I did a content placeholder which I stretched to fit the actual size of the page, and then I tried to see if there was anything more I had to see with regard to this. So I went ahead to do the bottom part of the footer. I started by, I think, getting some icons. I duplicated the one I had in there. Change the properties of it. That's the color, the size, and then the font type itself. So Facebook, I didn't get Facebook from material icon, so I switched to font awesome icon, and then I changed that. So I selected Facebook, and I clicked on OK, change the color, change the size as well. So the size, I had to change the size to an even size, or an equal size. So I did that using the size or the property inspector. So 25 by 25 looked fine, and then I changed the color to white. So yeah, that is the color that I used for that. And then I had to be sure if you hover over it, the same color comes, so that's white as well. And then I moved that into the footer layer, duplicated that to form the other icons. So I had for Twitter, I had for Facebook, I had for LinkedIn, I had for YouTube, and then I had for Instagram. So I went ahead to duplicate that by simply using Ctrl+C to copy, and then Ctrl+V to paste, select the appropriate icon, move it, and then have it done for all the icons. So that is what I did at this point. And then when I was done, the next thing I did was to make sure I had even spacing between them. So after this point, I would do that, or that would be the next thing I would do. So that's my last icon, which happens to be the Instagram icon. And so that's just about the icons. Now I'm going to go ahead to do the even spacing between them. So I selected the icons, holding on the shift key, selected all of them, moved them a little bit closer to each other, selected the last one, went to distribute, then I distributed evenly to the using the horizontal option to create even spacing between them. And then after that, I had to preview it in the browser to be sure that it had actually taken effect the way I wanted to. I was trying to confirm from the browser or the original site if that's like actually the same. So I think even before previewing, I went ahead to create the links at the bottom. So I used the CSS menu option to do that. So I brought the CSS menu, changed the properties of it, and then typed in all that has to be in there. So I copied everything into my notepad, and then I was able to get them to the CSS menu, as well as be able to configure the CSS menu, taking away the border, taking away the background color, taking away or changing the font to the respective font type that I'll be using, and then setting appropriate size for the font and then the color. So that's basically what I did in here, copying and pasting the links to create the links that I want, and then after that going ahead to change the colors and then the size, and then I went ahead to change the position entirely of the CSS menu. So I had to bring it into the layer, but I think at this point I'm just trying to get the appropriate font type for that, and then expand it a little bit. So certain pattern to the left as well as to the right, and then I went ahead to expand it, move it into my layer. So after this point, I think take away the background to transparent. There was still a border over there, so yeah, after noticing that, I had to take out the border. So I'm having my footer navigation links almost close to what is on the original website, and I finished reposition that, save that, preview this in the browser just to check to see if everything is in its place. So I have that now. The next thing is to bring, I think I had a text, a copyright text at the bottom. So that's the copyright 2020 Oracle. So there's something similar in WYSIWYG Web Builder where you use the ready-to-use JavaScript. So I brought that in the canvas, and then I selected the copyright notice, and then I went ahead to configure that, changing the color, changing the font type, the font size, as well as taking away some of the information that I didn't need there. So I took away the text information because I wanted to keep it as short as possible. I took away the date, the start date as well, and then I changed the color. So I changed the color, the font type, as well as the font size. So the color was white, the font type was Open Sans, and then the size of the font is 12. I think it used to be 12. But I had to change that to like about 10 pixels to match exactly what was there. So I had to be able to confirm this by previewing it, and I noticed it was a bit bigger. So I came back to the application and then changed that to like, I think about 10 pixels, and that looked fine. I resized it and then repositioned it close to the navigation menu or navigation items in there. So I think at this point I was through a bit with the navigation, that is the footer, and then I continued to work on the I think I worked on that was the other page, that's the index page itself, but I had to set the top layer, that's the header, to be a sticky layer, because if you take a good look at the actual page, once you scroll you notice that it stays there. So here I'm renaming the page to master page because this is going to be my master page, and then I duplicated it or cloned it to have that serve as my index page. So to be able to prevent any conflict on those two pages, I had to before that I had to even select my master page not to publish, and then select all the do not options, and then I came to my index page, deleted everything on it, so I don't get any sort of conflict with that compared to my master page. So I deleted almost everything, left one of the layers, cloned it, I cloned the layer so it prevents like sort of a duplicating ID. So I deleted the old layer, and then using the new layer, I thought of how I was going to go about that particular layout, that particular section. So I repositioned or resized this layer, using the appropriate size. I changed the height to, that was 270, moved it up there, and then changed the background property to the image. So I selected the respective image that I had from the site, place that in there. So that's the image. I changed the properties, that's the horizontal, vertical, and then the repeat property to do not repeat. So those are basically the options I worked with. Now I'm supposed to bring in that text in there which says net suit block. So I had to even look out for the font type, but I noticed that it was still the same font they're using, that's the Oracle Sans. So I just had to copy the text and then use Open Sans for it. So I copied the text, pasted it in a canvas, change the font type as well as the font property, that's the font size, the font type, and then a color. And then I think the color is even the same, so there's no need to even change the color. So I expanded it to fit in there, and I noticed that it was a bit bigger, so I had to reduce the size just a little bit to something a bit smaller than what was there. And then I went ahead to reposition that. So yeah, that's me repositioning that. And great, so now the next thing is to go about creating the navigation, that social media icons which was down there. So what I did was I had to bring in a new layer, and then I had to double click on that, expand that, set the properties of the page first to select my master page. So that's what I was doing. I linked my master page, and then at this point I noticed that there was some slight error at the top. It looks like I had to change the type of the layer I use here, because I duplicated the layer. It was still a sticky layer, so I had to change that to a default layer. Previewed and everything looked fine from here. So at this point it looks like I wasn't connected to the internet, so I was having some delays and having that loaded, but eventually I got it loaded and I was able to see how everything looks like. And then I went ahead to do the various aspects of the entire site. So I went ahead to so I think I set the sticky property orientation to center, top center, right? So that's what I did, so it doesn't move to the left side of the screen. And then after that I came back to the index page. So I came back to the index page, and then I went ahead to correct the other things that are supposed to be corrected over there. So I had to reposition the layers so as it's not sometimes some of the layers come on top of the others, and in my case, because of the navigation, once I preview it and I tried to click on the navigation, I noticed that it was some of the objects were coming into it, so I had to take a look at that and correct that. And even I had to even correct the way I went about the navigation, the type of layer I used. I had to change that because with the kind of layer I used, once you scroll on the page, you notice that it scrolls along, and that wasn't what I wanted. So I had to even think of a way to go about that. So we'll get to that point shortly. By this point, I was going to go about the icons, those icons I had in there, the social media icons. I basically cloned what I had on the master page, which is the footer section, and then I used that for this particular part. So I was just trying to get the size, so I'm able to set the new layer to that particular size, and then position everything in it. So here I got another layer, brought it inside, set the appropriate size, made sure it was positioned rightly in the middle of that particular layer in there, and then the space from the top to it wasn't so much wide, at least something close to what I had on the original site. And then I had to go to the master page to copy the icons at the footer section, and then came back to the index page and then pasted them here. So I think came back to the index page, pasted. So I think I actually just needed one because I was going to make some changes to it and then duplicate that. So I didn't bring everything, I just copied one came into the index page, and then I went ahead to change the size of it as well as the color. I was trying to see if I could get the color, but it looked like it wasn't as part of the CSS option. So I think I figured out a color, one of the colors, if that's so, or I just use my own color for that. So I'm still trying to find the color. So I think I found something that was going to work. So I just copied it, came back to my project, and then I set that to be the color I was going to use for it. So that was what I did at this point. And then I decided Hoover color to also be the same thing. Move this, let's change the size first, and then I moved that into that small or sub layer, which is over there. So I was trying to check the position of the icon, so I moved it. I think my position wasn't right at this point, but I had to correct it later on too. Here I went ahead to duplicate the icons, and then I went ahead to set the respective icons. So I think I needed 6, so I selected the rest, set even spacing between them. Yeah, I think that even the spacing was too much. I corrected that later on, but that's what I did. And after that, I changed the icons to their respective or their matching icons. So from Twitter, the next one, which I think was LinkedIn, and I also had for YouTube, Instagram, and then the final one, which was RSS, or mostly RSS feed. So that's me changing the icons of the respective icons over there. So yeah, so that's for the Instagram, and finally the last one, which is the RSS feed. So selected that as well, and I had all my icons, but I think the spaces that was in between them was a bit more compared to the original, or the original website or page I was having a look at. So I came back to correct the spacing between them. So to be able to work on the spacing, there was a need to select the respective icons, and then use the evenly distribute among them option to be able to distribute the icon, being it vertically or horizontally. But in this case, because I wanted to be done in a horizontal way, I went ahead to use the distribute horizontally to set equal spacing between them horizontally, and that worked much better compared to what I had previously. So I went ahead to do the other aspect of the site. So I started with the top text. I had to get a text, grab the text from the site or the page, and then I went ahead to do the side text as well. So I managed to copy the side text, and then I was trying to look at the effect that was done on top. That once you hover on top of any of the images, it gives you this sort of should I say fade effect. So I was just trying to see if I would achieve that, but I actually didn't even proceed to work on that because I hadn't created any links for those images. So I just went ahead to bring in the text, and I resize the text as well as reformat it so I get the actual color I wanted. So at this point, I was trying to set the text to match what I had in there. So I had to bring in a layer to set the image in a layer. So that's the layer. I had to get it's well positioned. That's exactly in the middle, horizontally in the mother layer, and then set the size of the the text to something. I think about 25 was too much, I think, so I later reduced that, and then I had to check the color for it. So I got a color using the property inspector tool in the browser, and then I came back to apply the color to that particular text. So I went ahead to drag the appropriate image that is supposed to be in there to position that. So I had to resize the image so it could fit in the layer that I had brought, so that I don't have anything overlap, and I also don't want to follow exactly what I have on the original page or site, because some of them may not necessarily look like what it is if you are supposed to follow them that way. So I just went ahead to do some of them my own way, especially some of the sizes, so that at the end at least I'm able to get something close, not exactly but close to what I wanted. So I just had to so I had to keep going back and forth with the actual website and then what I was working on, so that at the end I am able to match or get exactly or something closer to what the final look should look like. So that was what basically I was doing. So if you notice, I keep switching back and forth between the site and then what I was working on now, because I wasn't using multiple screens. So that's how come I had to be going about things in that way. But maybe for subsequent projects, sometimes I use multiple screens, sometimes I had to use a single screen, so that depending on where I may be, if I have my laptop with me, it's easier for me to work on some of these things. So at the end of the day, I just had to still be able to get the work done, and that was what basically I was trying to do or accomplish with this particular project. So I know this video is going to be a bit lengthy one, because as looking at everything, I took about total of 1 hour 30+ minutes to finish, with a back and forth, pausing at some point, coming back and the rest. But after that, I'm yet to make it responsive, so that will be in a different video to look at how I'll go about the responsive process. So in case you haven't seen me do anything from start to finish, this tutorial is basically going to help you with that. So at this point, I was basically trying to configure the text there to match something close to what I had in here. So it took me some time to be able to get that at least something much close. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at this point. So at this point, because I was trying to link the text and then have similar effects compared to the original site, I had to create a style for the link so I could reuse it anytime I wanted to. There wasn't a need for me to recreate or maybe just link this separately. So I created a link, that's a link style, called it link, changed the colors to appropriate colors, and then set that to the link that I was creating at that point. So I had to set this to the pound or the hash key because I didn't want it to go anywhere. So if you notice, if I hover, it gives me the text with the colors, but it wasn't doing for all. I wanted to try to accomplish something, the same thing, which I can, but probably might take me some time to be able to get that done. But so I just left it as it is. Then I resize the entire text and then check the text very well so I know what is starting at what point and where to end what. So that was what I did at this point to get the text a little bit close to the actual website. So I think I'm through at that point. The next thing is to take a look at what was next from there. So I think I corrected the featured text, and then I went ahead to do other things from there. So at this point, I'm still trying to position the text and everything well. So at this moment, I'm trying to expand the height of the layer so I can position the add object in it. Now, to be able to accomplish that, I decided I was going to use the card to do that. Since the card 2 makes it easier to stack a couple of elements or objects together, and then once you move it, they all come along. I decided I was going to use the card to do that. So I cleared the card, and then I decided I was going to start with the image. So the image is first, we have the small text, and then we have the next text after that. So I started off with the image. Now, one easy thing about this was that because of the images I was using, the sizes were equal or the same, so I didn't have to struggle with the size of the images. So that is what I brought in here, one of the images, and then went ahead to copy and paste the text. I think I typed this one instead, and then for the next one I copied from the site. I then pasted that in there. And after that, after bringing a text, so I had to specify the font type, which is Open Sans. That is what I'm using throughout the entire project. And then after that, of course, I had to specify, I think the size. I left the size on, okay, this was the next one. So I changed the size of the next one to 18. And then I changed the alignment to left. And even after that, I added some padding to the left hand side. So it just moved the text slightly away from the exact edge of the screen. So I increased the size of the second text to 20 pixels, and then I think the first one, so I set the padding to the top. I increased the padding to the top as well as to the bottom to create a space between those two texts as well as the image. And after previewing it, I noticed I probably would have to increase the padding a little bit more, so I did that. And I think the font size 18 was fine. Instead of making it 20, I came back to 18. And I tried previewing. I noticed that there was a border around the entire card, so I had to come back and then take off the border from there. So that's what I did here. Set that to 0, saved, and then try previewing again to make sure. Okay, so I instead of previewing, I had to check the other object that I had, and then set the pattern right before I go ahead to duplicate for the other ones. So that is the right pattern that I use for the top as well as the bottom of the financials text. And then I set the border to the left, that is padding to the left, like about 2 pixels. I did same for the text after. So it creates some space between the edge of the card as well as that of the text. And I did same for the right ones as well, so that doesn't really look like it's exactly at the edge of the screen or the card there. So at this time, I went ahead to clone the cards. So I created 3 for each as a row. Yes, I did 3 for each row, and then I distributed them evenly. I went ahead to change the images for the other 2, and then I went ahead to duplicate it for the remaining cards. So that is what I'm trying to do here. So I was trying to find the appropriate size of the card so I could use same for what I have in mind. So after figuring out I think the size, then I tried copying the text to use it for the next card. And then I went ahead to change the size of the cards that I had there, as well as changed the text, and then I went ahead to make sure they were evenly distributed. So changing the text here, service industry, and also I had to change the images. So I changed the images for those 2 cards, and then I went ahead to duplicate those 3 cards in all. So change the image for that as well. Let me so went back to the card. Okay, so I think I was trying to get a text for that particular card here, so I managed to get that, pasted that in here, copied this, pasted that as the smaller text, and then after that I went ahead to increase the size of the card. So I changed the image before increasing the size of the card. So, and I took a preview, everything looked fine. So then it was time to duplicate to make the other cards as well. So at this point I noticed that there was actually a problem with the navigation. If you scroll up and then click on it, you notice that it doesn't, like, it scrolls along. So I had to find a way to fix that. So the way I could go about that was bring a new layer 2 and then change the mode of the layer. So that's what I'm doing now, bringing a layer to the canvas. So I changed the I showed the objects for, that's the layer containing navigation items. I had to move the footer a bit to the bottom so I have some space to work there, and then I expanded the layer, the new layer, which is now going to contain the navigation. So I expanded that, made sure I moved everything to the back, moved it out of its way, and then make sure I position the navigation layer into this, right? So yes, so I repositioned that, and then after that I had to change the background color to transparent. So okay, before even doing that I had to make change the ID of that. So since I had already set an animation to the black layer containing navigation items, I had to interchange that. I was just hoping the animations were automatically going to take effect, but it looks like it didn't, so I had to still go back and then correct that. But after that I previewed this, it worked fine, but still there was a problem because it still screws. So I had to change the mode of the new layer, which I brought on the master page, to a docking layer. So yeah, after changing the navigation to, yeah, right, so after changing that, then it's still the same, because like after you scroll it still goes back to the top. So trying to fix that, I had to change the mode of that layer to docking layer. So that's what I'm doing here. The docking layer worked fine. So yeah, so setting that as our event, yeah. So hide that, and then once I preview that, everything was working fine now. The only challenge with this solution is that once you have the navigation showing, you can't click on any of the links over there, because automatically, or the normal circumstance, we have a navigation item hovering on top of the object over there, which doesn't look visible, but that's what's actually happening. So one thing you need to take note, sometimes some of these limitations come up, but once you find a way it's working, it's actually a good thing. So that was how I went about the navigation, or fixing the navigation. And then after doing that, I continued. So at this point I was trying to change the size to hope that I could still have access to click on the object, but it looked like it wasn't going to work. So there are actually ways, a couple of other ways that you can go about to achieve something similar, but all you need to bear in mind is you can't get exactly 100% of what is already there. So you just have to work with what works for you at the end. Once it works, that's all you need at the end. So at this point, I increased the size of the cards a little bit. I did the same for the others, and then after that I went ahead to duplicate all the cards so that I could form more rows as well as columns for the post. So this is more or less like a blog page, which is going to have a couple of articles. So all these articles are going to be linked to respective articles. So I increased the height of the layer, that's the main layer, and then I went ahead to so I checked the number of more columns that I have so I could duplicate those cards appropriately. So I increased the height a little bit more, and then I went ahead to duplicate those cards. So that was the first duplicate I created, and then I did a second one. That's actually it. And yeah, I had to distribute the spaces vertically between them evenly, and then I had to align the middle cards to the last one to the right so they all have equal spaces between them. And I had to check for to change the images. I had to change all those images, so I selected appropriate images for those respective cards. So still selecting appropriate images. Done with that now. Now the next thing is to create a pagination for the right hand section. So there's pagination in WYSIWYG web builder. So I had to expand the layer a little bit and then go back to the toolbox to set or select the pagination object. So I think that's what I did next here. Right, so I searched for the pagination object, and then I brought it. I didn't have to do any configuration because I don't have all the pages for this project yet. So the only thing I did was just to align it to the right and reposition it, and that was just about it. So I have the pagination done, and trying to reposition it where it has to be and align it to the right hand side of the card over there. So I think I'm beginning to get my page into shape now. Just some few things that has to be done. So the search section, which is going to go to the master page. That's what I did here. So I got to the toolbox, search for the search tool, that is the site search tool, put it in there, and then I had to move it to the appropriate place, which is in the header, and then I had to get rid of the search button. I didn't really need that, so I had to go ahead to configure this. So there are a few things that I did here. I did the round edge, I did a padding to the left, I changed the font type as well as added an icon, and then also I changed the text which was within the in focus of the search bar. So that's what I'll be doing here. So I had to change the font type at this point, and then I had to also change the font size, and then the radius. So the radius is what gives it this curved edge. I had to increase it to a couple of different figures to see if it was going to get something closer to what I had in there. So that was what I was doing at this point. So 20 was still a bit small, so there was a need to still increase it. And then I think I went a bit higher than that, and eventually it worked. So 25 still looked, I think, a bit smaller. Okay, I think 25 was fine. I increased the padding to the left so that the text moves a bit away from the left edge, so that it creates a space for the icon I want to position over there. So I kept increasing that so I got something suitable to work with. So at this point, I'm still trying to, get the appropriate configurations done so that I have my search to, that is a site search to, working the way I want it to. So that's the search results. Those are the colors. Those are the font properties. The text and all those things are all here. Once you double click on the search to, you have all those options to work with. So I changed the font size, and then I think that was basically just about it. I had to configure where the search results were going to show, but I did that later on. So I think I had everything. I duplicated the icon, and then I changed the icon to the search icon. So I was looking for something that matched what I had on the website. So I went through the font awesome icon, and then hopefully I was able to find something that worked well. So yeah, I found something that worked well, and I went ahead to use that. So I changed the size of the icon, and then I went ahead to increase the margin for the search box. So I went to the padding section and I increased the margin or the padding to the left. I think I had something much convenient in there. I previewed that, and I think I was checking the height of that particular search box there, and then I had to apply same to mine. So after doing that, and then I tried testing or previewing to see if everything was in its rightful place. So at this point, I cloned the index page so I could create a page which was going to serve as the search results page. I later noticed or realized I wasn't going to need that, so I had to delete that. But this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to go ahead to configure that page, and then I was hoping it was going to be able to work for my search result, but it didn't really serve what I wanted, so I later got rid of it. Now, because of how I was looking at having the search results work, I was looking at something which was going to be dynamic based on the number of items which were going to show. It was automatically going to increase the height of the page. So I was using the layout grid to achieve that. But once I noticed that I couldn't have the search result work the way I wanted, I went ahead to delete everything. So here I was cloning a layer, and then the one with the icons, and then I went ahead to change their property or mode to a floating layer so it could stick to the top exactly. So that was what I was doing at this point, but of course I still went ahead to delete them. So in order to be able to test fully the site search tool, I had to publish this to a localhost server and then try it out to see if it was going to work. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm specifying the path to the localhost server. That's the directory files, and then I went ahead to publish it, tested it in the browser to see if the site search was working. So it was working, but unfortunately it wasn't working the way I wanted it to work, so I had to get rid of that new page that I added. So I actually spent some time on the layout grid, just hoping it was going to work well, but unfortunately didn't. So I'll soon get rid of it, but at this point you probably will be able to figure out some few tricks or some few ways to go about using the layout grid tool. So after noticing that it wasn't going to really work well for me, then I thought of a different way of going about it. So this time around I used a modal option, which is part of the search, the site search tool, which allows you to be able to specify how you want search results to show, how many results, and how you even want to go about coloring that. So I'll be doing that here. So at this point I figured out I could show it and a modal box. So I went ahead to use that instead of the new page entirely. So I had to test out how the model was going to be. So after that, I went ahead to try it, and then made sure it was going to work well for this particular project. So I previewed this, hoping to test it, having something working, and then tested this. I had to clear the link to be on the exact page, that is the home page, which is the localhost/test site, and then entered the PPP just to test something out. And then I had the pop-up. I should have a pop-up window showing. Right, so that's the modal that was showing. It looked small. I had to tweak the settings of it a little bit, so I went back to the application and then I corrected those things and I came back to test it again. So I'm still testing out the modal options to see which one or which settings of it is really going to work well. So I changed the width size, I changed the height, the alignment. I tried a couple of the options over there just to see what was going to work well for me. So after a couple of tries, I still trying now, but after a couple of tries, I decided I was going to stick to the modal, but this time around I was going to change the animation or the effects that it comes with once you search for an object. That brings the search results in the modal box, and then also how it hides once you close it. So I kept publishing, trying, testing just to get what I wanted, and after getting satisfied with what I was able to configure or to set the whole thing to, then I went ahead to proceed with the other aspect of the site. So I am actually getting to the end of this video. I spent, I think, about 1 hour 37 minutes in total to finish up with the desktop layout, and then the next part is going to be the responsive part. So I'll have to end this video shortly so it doesn't get too long. I'm trying to figure out how to go about some of these basic things. So I'm still trying to configure the modal to show results appropriately, and then that was actually what ended this session, having the modal box for search results configured well, and then having it functioning properly. So that is what I'm trying to do here. It took some time to be able to get it to work exactly the way I wanted, but it's worth it, because at the end of the day, like I said from the very beginning, sometimes some of these projects you have to try a couple of things to see how that is going to be before you're able to get exactly what you want. And as you keep trying new things, you discover new tools, you discover new processes, and you're able to improve upon your skill set, especially when it comes to WYSIWYG Web Builder. This is what I've personally been trying or been implementing over the years, and it's helped me be able to improve upon my skills, work faster, and be able to figure out how to go about a couple of things once I am tasked to work on them, or once I see them. So that is what I have actually used in going about this particular project. This happens to be my first more or less like a live demo video, not necessarily live demo, but starting something from scratch and then going to finish it. So I am hoping you enjoy this, or you'll be enjoying this kind of videos, because I'm looking for it to be able to do more, looking at some more projects I may be working on, and probably switch on the record button to be able to record the entire process that is going to be involved in working on some of these things. So I'm going to leave this to continue the process till I'm done, but there's going to be a background music playing so it doesn't get so boring as you're trying to figure out what is being done. So this is going to be a part 1 of the two videos, which the first one focuses on starting everything from scratch, configuring, and then going about the design process, and then the second one is going to focus on making the project responsive. So that will be about it for now. In case you are new and you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, kindly go ahead and hit on the subscribe button, and then don't forget to hit on the bell so that anytime I have a new video, you'll be the first to see it. So thank you for watching once again. Stick true to the end of this video to learn more, and I'll see you in the next video.